Okay, welcome to Dish Podcast. On this episode, obviously, we're going to be discussing interracial dating. I guess we'll just go around and introduce ourselves and then we get straight into it. Start.
Hey, I'm P, creative, London.
Short and sweet.
Stefan, working advertising.
Michelle, student.
Eche, teacher.
Richie, presenter. Bilal, youth empowerment.
Esther, social media editor.
Joelle, marketer.
Shanice, making advertising.
Okay, cool. So, as you guys know, today's episode is interracial dating. So, I guess one of the first things, I've been discussing it with a lot of people. What are the pros and cons to interracial dating? What is a pro of interracial dating? Is there a pro? Like, what's a con of interracial dating? Like, I want to understand, like, I guess what gets you to interracially date? Is there something that gets you to interracially date? Or is it something that is just like, it's cool? I feel like people sit on the fence. They're kind of like, oh, do you care? Does it matter to anyone in their lives?
I think it's really cool now.
It's cool.
If that's the right thing to say. Yeah, I think.
For black women or black men?
Just in general, I feel like it's more trendy. I don't know if that's the right word to be in an interracial relationship, I think, yeah.
Trendy in London.
People make money from it online.
I think that's why it's
Swirl
selling.
relationship.
Have you seen that YouTube page?
Yeah.
The swirl stuff.
I'm just like of the black woman and the man.
There's
like,
loads of them.
Bare of them.
There's a whole
loads of them.
YouTube community.
Swirling.
Yeah.
They
Swirling.
call it swirling.
Swirling.
Wow.
Yeah, and I've noticed that like they get loads of views because they're in an interracial relationship, and I feel like if it was two black people or two white people, it wouldn't. It's like something to sell. I don't know if that makes sense.
Commodified.
Yeah, it's
Makes
commodified.
sense.
Is it radical to be in a black relationship then? Or is it more acceptable? Is it more palatable to be in an interracial relationship? So I know when I walk down the road, if I'm with a black guy, or when I'm with a black guy, I feel like people are like, oh my gosh, this is so nice. Like they have to go out of their way to tell me, oh, I don't get to see this often. Like, and I always just feel like, ooh, this is a lot. Do you know what I mean? Or is it like, I haven't been on the other side of that, like where I'm interracially dating and people are coming at me in a certain way. I don't know. Is it different?
I've had no issues in that respect. But who's applauding you for?
I think both black and white people. I feel like white people just see it as like, oh, it's really nice. Like they look at the aesthetic of it, I think, and they're just like, I think for them especially, they see it as sometimes quite radical. Like, I don't know how to explain it. That's just how it comes across. Like, and then if it's black people, they just sit and say, they're just like, oh my gosh, I love, this is so, like, I'm telling you, like, genuine men, women have come up to me and been like, oh, you're such a beautiful couple. And I'm like, it puts me in a weird space that I'm black, I'm with a black person, which is normal. But at the same time, apparently that's like, different.
I think depending on where you grow up, like in Portsmouth, there weren't a lot of black people in general, so a lot of people would be in interracial relationships. So for me, when I do see black couples in London, I think in London it's probably there's more black couples. I'm kind of like, oh wow, that's so nice. I would never go to someone and say that because I think that's very patronising and kind of weird. But like the thought, because I'm not used to seeing that, the thought does come into my head like, oh, that's nice. Especially when it's two dark-skinned black people. Yeah, I'm sorry, but that's rare, and I actually am like, that's actually really nice.
Is it rare?
I'm saying from my background where I come from in Portsmouth, which is south, and it's rare, but obviously depending on where you grow up, it's completely normal.
Yeah. I mean, for me, interracial black couples, like, it was normal, kind of in Birmingham, like, it's pretty multicultural, but I do see a lot now, like when there's like black love, like people are like, I love seeing this, and it's sort of this like pro-black sort of kind of thing going on. But then at the same time, I do think there is a rise of accepting interracial relationships, especially since the whole YouTube vibe. Like when you see people like, I don't know if you follow like Patricia Bright when she like released her wedding, and then you've got like Jamie and Nikki in Australia, and like I feel like there are quite a few people who are seen as goals, and it is an interracial couple. So I suppose it just depends. For me, I just love seeing romance. Like I'm a hopeless romantic, so I'm like, like any sort of
crying that first date. Oh my god.
So it's like, yeah, but I don't think it's radical though to see black love, because I think I see it quite a bit.
to go back to your initial question about the pros and cons, I don't think there necessarily can be. It'll be the same pros and cons with any relationship. But what I do think is interesting, I guess, is there are people who will look at you differently if you're dating outside of your race. Mm-hmm. And for that, I think for me, that's quite annoying to see those kind of militant people with their views, man. Because if you have someone like Frederick Douglass and you think about what he did, what one of his wives was white, it's like, so for some people, that's an issue to this day. So I think people that have that mentality, that's counterproductive. It's counterproductive. And I think the worst thing that I'd seen actually on the internet was, I think it was a black couple that adopted a bunch of white kids. And you look at some of the comments on the video, and half of the comments is full of vitriol, saying that they've sold out or they've done X, Y, and Z, rather than they've done that act of taking in children into their home.
Are they British?
I think that was in the States, probably in the States. Man.
Do you know what? Because I don't agree with like the abuse that they're getting. But I guess, I mean, this isn't really related to what we're talking to. So I'm talking about, but I'll just say quickly, I guess, if you're looking at adoption and the care system, black children are overrepresented. So I think if people are coming from a questioning perspective, saying, I was really interested you adopted white children, considering black children overrepresented and they're finding it really hard to find families, I think that's a good discussion to have. But just to come at them, like, what you did, you sold out, blah, 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 that's a problem. I think my issue is just lending the point to the point that was made earlier on. I think when people are coming at someone for dating interracially without having any context whatsoever, I think if you're coming online saying, yeah, or you're coming publicly saying, yeah, I'm dating outside my race because women who aren't within my race are better, then really, really have a conversation. If you don't know the reasons why someone's in their relationship, they're just in their relationship because they love the person, then you really shouldn't have nothing to say. It's when you're raising up one race of women to put down another, or one race of men to put down another. That's when I think there's a problem.
This is the thing. So I was saying this before, so I'm mixed race, but I'm not mixed black and white. And like, I feel like normally the standard of mixed race is white and other, and I'm mixed like black and brown, and it's a different sort of interracial relationship. And it means for me that any relationship I then have in my own life is going to be interracial, because unless I find someone who's exactly the same ethnic mix as me, I'm gonna end up being in a mixed race relationship, right? But I think, when I think to what my parents and the challenges that they faced being a brown man dating a black woman, it was interesting. Like my dad, I said this recently, my dad's wedding, only one person from his family turned up to that wedding, because there's anti-blackness in the brown community too. And often we talk about interracial, meaning like there's white and black, and that's sort of the nuances that we see. It's just like white and black, and that's what interracial means. But for me, having dated everyone, I've dated people from all kinds of races, because I'm mixed race, and I don't. For me, it's just like I'm just going to date people because they're people. I find it interesting, going back to what you were saying, and what you were saying before, the different ways in which people perceive you because of the person that you're holding hands with when you're walking down the street. And I think it's interesting, and I don't mean this in like a negative way. I mean, like it just throw it out there. It's interesting the way that your own people might see you for the person you're holding hands with.
Sorry, I think it's because I'm the same mix as you. So my mum's Asian, so she's Burmese and Indian, mixed with white, and my dad's black Guyanese. And I've never, like, for me, I identify as mixed black. Like, I know I'm mixed race, but for me, like the way I grew up, on both sides of my family, so my mum's family being Asian, completely embraced my dad. But growing up where I grew up, culturally, my upbringing was very black, like extremely black. So all the relationships I've been out with one person from an Asian background, but all my relationships have been black. All of them, every single one. And for me, it's never ever felt for me like a mixed relationship, just because culturally, we're exactly the same. Like family-wise, there's a difference. But for me, in terms of the way I navigate society, what my experience has been, like,
so
it's been...
This is not... So recently, me and my boys were sitting down because we were talking about, all of us have dated outside of our race, right? But have we dated outside of our culture? And that's an interesting discussion, because one of my boys was saying, well, no, because I grew in this council estate and I've dated the girl like down the road, and even though they're a different race, like culturally, we've had the same experience and upbringing. And that's something to throw out there when we're talking about interracial relationships. Are we talking about Are we talking about like problematic interracial relationships where we talk about, oh my god, like I'm gonna idolize like a white woman because I'm a black man, or the other way around? Or are we talking about when people literally just grew up side by side? That's something to bring up.
I think that's a good point to make because it's two different things. Because that's when we realise that race, in a way, is just a construct. Because you can have the exact same cultural upbringing as someone and have so many things in common and be completely two different races. But I think when we talk about interracial relationships, we really usually talk about the people who idolise whiteness. Have you seen, the documentary? What was it? How is dating racist or is love racist? Did you guys see that on? Channel 4. It was really good. It basically showed how generally most people have a white bias when you're dating.
No, it was with, I think the woman's mixed race.
Yeah, she's
dark hair. She's a historian or something. Social historian.
It's called Is Love Racist? That's what it's called. Yeah, and it just showed how we all have. I don't know. Objectively, most people have a white bias when they're dating, and I think that informs some interracial relationships where you can see that it's manifestation of internal issues. Not all the time at all, because like you said, people just date within their culture actually. But I think it's that perception that can you be pro-black, for example, and date a white person? That's the question. That's it.
I feel like you can.
I've heard like, you sold out, man. It's like, well, did I? Because how? In what sense? Like,
exactly.
What do you mean by that? Like,
can you be pro-black though? Because for me, I'm saying pro-black is like white nationalist. For me, you can't be white nationalist and date interracially. Doesn't make any sense. I think
that
if
girl
you're
from
talking,
Britain first though, Jada.
like
the top.
Yeah.
She's always dating black men.
I think I was like, what white man's doing that?
When I
Why
heard
is he dating
stories,
her?
she's like,
What are they doing? That's not even a good.
No, I think you can because like if you look back at like just people like Maya Angelou, Catherine Dunham, like going way back, they all dated like white men, but they were super pro-black, and I don't feel like you can tell someone how pro-black they are because of who they choose to date, because I think that that's an attraction or a preference of who they just decide to have a companionship with. And I feel like when my first boyfriend was a white guy, and loads of black boys told me, you're a sellout, you don't even know what you want. I'm thinking, no, I just don't like you. Do you know what I mean? And it was like, it almost became this thing where I was like forced to change my attraction at the time because I felt like I wasn't supposed to be attracted to a white guy. And I feel like that doesn't change actually who I am or what I stand for or who my ancestors are or anything like that. So I feel like when people say that you can't be someone else or you can't have certain beliefs because of who you date, I don't know, I think that's a bit problematic.
I don't know though, because when you're saying pro-black specifically, part of being pro-black for me is about being like, I want a black family. That is what I'm putting above anything else. I mean, you can have an interracial family, but I don't necessarily think I would put that under the black family like house. Like if you're looking at, let's say like let's say the thoughts of like the Black Panthers or people who are like black nationalists, their understanding is I am black. I want a black wife or a black partner to have black children so I can, I don't know, reciprocate or like, follow on that particular path. And I want to raise that up. Do you know what I mean?
So is it possible to be black and from the LGBT community be pro-black then? Because you may not have a black family.
What do you mean?
So you're saying like part of being pro-black is being with a black partner and having a black family. Well, if you're from the
for
LGBT
me, yeah,
community,
you can. Yeah, I mean, black man, woman, and woman. Either way.
So what I mean, you may not have a family as a result.
Yeah, I mean, I still feel like, for me, it's more about you're putting blackness to the forefront. So that's why I say pro-blackness for me is different to for blackness. Like, I can be for black people. White people can also be for black people. That doesn't mean that they're pro-black. Like, I think pro-black is a problematic term because it's not like, maybe if I said black nationalist, like I don't necessarily, I think you can't really be both at the same time. That's just my personal opinion. I don't think you can.
Pro-black is equivalent to white nationalist.
Absolutely.
That's all.
I think maybe colloquially it is,
I don't think so. I think we can redefine pro-blackness for ourselves and like, I don't know, but I don't think white nationalist, that's very, I don't know.
But to be fair, can I just come quickly?
Yeah, no, go.
I like where you brought the conversation too, because those people that were typing about that couple that adopted those white children, those were the militant ones,
pro-black.
The pro-black
Right,
ones.
okay.
And so I think it does raise an interesting question, because I also think that it is counterproductive, because then I'm thinking of the people who do actually have they put a certain race on a pedestal. And so if you're dating out of that race, then you're doing something wrong. So there are certain segments of the community that think like that.
This reminds me of our first conversation. We talked about like levels of wokeness, right?
Yeah.
We're talking about to be the most woke, you need to do this, and it's like we idolize what it means to be like woke, or what it means to like to be pro-black. But to like what we're trying to say here is you can celebrate your blackness, but who you love, to me, I don't think it falls under that category.
I think we're getting lost in the term. Pro-blackness means being for blackness in an anti-black society. So when you're pro-black, it's radical, because what you're doing is you're fighting against anti-blackness. That's why pro-whiteness is nationalism. So it's about it's a pro-white society anyway. So why are you pro-white? Pro-blackness is born out of an anti-black society.
Yeah.
That's where pro-blackness comes from. You're telling me that what I am isn't good enough, how I look isn't good enough, I'm not pretty, I'm not handsome, I'm not smart enough, my culture isn't good enough. So I'm pro-black in that I celebrate the very essence of my being and my community. So if we're looking at what pro-blackness is, it's a counteraction to white supremacy.
Yeah.
So what about preference then? So preference, is that actually just natural? Like, as in, okay, well, I'm born with a certain preference, or is it culturally changed? So a lot of people who date interracially will say, I just have a preference. But if preference is not, I guess, if preference is a case of nature versus nurture, or which one does it fall under, then that argument can be countered, because you could say that, well, your preference isn't just, I just like so-and-so, because you're culturally, I guess, indoctrinated to like certain things or have certain beauty ideals. So
I think that a lot of people will be like, that person's not my type, or that, you know what I mean? Like when you say, I don't really go for that, whatever. But I feel like there are people that can test that. And until it's tested, then people say, I don't really know if I've got a type anymore, or I don't know if I have a preference. So I do think that people do have preferences based on what they've seen in their experiences, and obviously who they've dated and who they haven't dated, what they've been exposed to. But I don't think that can't then be like sort of tested against, or that they can't then date outside that preference or date outside their type, because
can you prefer not your own race?
I mean, people
Like,
some people do. Some people do.
I think you can't claim that it's just your preference, because nothing you form is in a vacuum.
Yeah, exactly.
Formed by everything around you.
Yeah.
So you can claim as much as you want it's just my preference, but it's definitely been influenced by something.
Yeah, by something. It's been influenced by
That's
something.
definitely true, because I have a friend who's from Nigeria. When he moved here probably like 10, 15 years ago, and all of a sudden his preference became non-black women. Like, I've never known this man to date any black woman, or especially any woman that's black and from their country. And his explanation was just that, his preference is a certain kind of woman that falls under a certain kind of culture, and that culture happens to be he likes women that reads books, or he likes women that does this or that. Yeah, no, that's in his mind. Exactly. He makes it seem as if all black women are like, they're not literate, like we don't do certain. Exactly. He's got his preference. Yeah, I know, he's very narrow-minded, but his preference is just white women, and he doesn't have like a valid explanation for why he likes white women. But because that's what he exclusively dates, I can't be upset. I can't make the man like something he just doesn't like. If that's what you like, then alright, that's what you like.
I have a friend who. Sorry, I was going to say. I have a friend who her preference is white men, and I've literally haven't known her to date any black guys actually. But I think that she appreciates black men, as in like how they look and stuff. But I think it's more so the personality thing rather than the looks. Yeah. So her preference is to be white women, because I feel like she likes to just be a dominating character.
But does that mean that?
And I don't think that she can't be a dominating character with black guys. But from her experiences, every time she's come into like contact with a black guy, or she wants to date one, she just thinks they're a bit too overpowering.
Or what about the other way around? What about white guys who exclusively date outside their race, like only black women?
Only non-black. White guys who date only black women.
Only non-white women.
Only non-white women.
Only non-white women, yeah.
I don't even think about them, you know. Now, I've got to be real, like, it's not my direct experience, but I do think you moving into the kind of fetish realm.
That's
Like,
exactly
it gets a bit
Yeah.
like, so
It's
what is
a
this based on?
Yeah.
Like, why do you like
Or white women or Asian women who only date black men, but we don't.
Only.
We say that. I don't think we would necessarily say that they are fetishizing black men, though. But vice versa, I feel like if I see a white guy and he only dates black women and he's in the club like feeling so at home,
Funny you.
and it's like, yeah, I'm one of those guys who knows how to do. I've got rhythm. I'm just like, okay,
I kind of see it's sort of down to like socialization and exposure, right? So the circles that you're in, you're going to end up in some way like dating within those circles. So for example, when we see like richer black men, they end up being in circles which are going to be predominantly more white. So the types of people are going to be more exposed to in those circles are going to predominantly be more white women as a result of the circles that they're in. And I can speak from my own anecdotal experience of like growing up, everyone I dated was black because that's the circle that I was in as a teenager until like I went to university, and I was like, oh cool, I'm now like this different circle where I'm exposed to a whole another category of human being, and I ended up like opening my, not like my mind, but opening like my options, being like, well, these are people I never even saw before, and therefore it was like now an option. Where before there was no exposure to that, and I wasn't in those social circles.
Yeah, that's a good point, because like for me, growing up in a church where in Bradford, that's where all black people were, I ended up dating. I was always dating inside my race, and then I guess started going to church, went to university, and I'm around different people, and there's less black people around, so you end up dating outside your race. It just was a matter of, again, socialisation and location. And then I come down to London, and there's all different kinds of people, and I just date who I date, I guess. And that's everyone.
Can we just go back to the fetishization quickly? Because I find it interesting as a concept. So we have, on the left, we have a black man who only dates black women. But then you flip it, white dude who only dates black women. What's the problem? One is being called the fetishization, but what if it's his preference? Same way. How do you know? How do you know this person's psychology?
It's a good point, but you do end up seeing, I guess, white men kind of classing everyone that's not white kind of exotic, and you do see that kind of narrative come about. It's not everyone, and again,
it's a historical narrative.
Yeah, it's a historical narrative. So I think that's where I guess some people might jump to when they see that.
But isn't our problem having a historic narrative where we are in 2018?
I feel like you can fetishize. You can be black and fetishize black women.
Yeah, I was
she needs to look like this. Her skin needs to be like this. Her body needs to be like that. She needs to look like. You can absolutely do it. I'm not saying it's common. I'm saying it can definitely happen.
Do people within the black race have higher standards for their partners than outside? Like, say, for example, I could say, I think some black guys might go, well, if she doesn't have shape and she's black, boy, I don't know. If she doesn't have hair that looks like X, Y, and Z, I don't know. If she doesn't do X, Y, and Z, or vice versa, black women might say, well, if he's not tall and he's buff and he looks like this and he's like that, whereas if they were interracially dating, their standards for certain things are different. Like, I'm not saying they might be higher, they might be lower. Do you know what I mean? Like, but I think they're different. Like, I might see a guy, like, let's just say, for example, because I'm black and I date black guys, I might date someone and then he might be like, oh, well, I like women who've got a certain shape. But then if he dates a white person or an Asian lady, he doesn't require that from her necessarily, but he would require it from another race, which I think, or maybe there's other people who are like, I require a certain shape from all different types of women.
But maybe that's more to do with what society expects certain people of different races, different phenotypes to like look like and be like. And then we end up doing that ourselves by accident. Where it's like, oh, okay, so now I accidentally got it in my head that if I'm going to date this person, this is what I expect. If I'm going to date this person, this is what I expect.
I agree. I think it's definitely a subconscious thing because you've seen it on TV, you see it with your family, this is what you expect from a certain race. Whereas if I'm just going to say a black person dating a white guy, you don't expect the white guy to know everything about your hair, you don't expect him to know that you need to moisturize in the morning, you don't expect him to know that you're going to wear a head cap before bed, you don't expect him to know all those things. So you tend to be maybe more forgiving of his mistakes and his lack of knowledge. I don't know, that's what
I don't know, like, I feel like if I'm dating a white guy, I mean, I'm not gonna expect him, right, to like know everything about me per se and like, you know, my hair, whatever. But I do sort of expect some sort of open dialogue of what that is. I wouldn't be just forgiving like, yeah, you're white girl, so you won't know. Like, I wouldn't be like that. And I feel like going back to that fetishization thing. I know quite a few white guys actually that date only black women, and they said to me that it is genuinely just a preference based off everything, not just their look, but just on like how black girls are and like their conversations and like it's not just I like black girls because of how they look. It's like they just find that.
But how are we?
And I'm not saying when I say everyone, when I say that, I mean obviously they've been exposed to a type of black girl wherever they are from, and obviously a type of white girl. So to them, the white girls, they're just not as interesting to talk to. Like they just find that they've got more and I personally don't think it's a bad thing, because when we see it in culture, I feel like black culture obviously is lit. So people are interested in it, and obviously they want to know more about stuff, and they like the idea of black culture, like they're just interested. So when they're having conversations with black girls, they find that they not learn more and they find out more things, and they're just more inclined to have a better conversation rather than when they're having conversations with white girls, because I don't know if they're ditzy, or I don't want to describe every type of white girl as ditzy, but that's just their experience when they're...
But that would make me feel like I'm just part of it.
I've been in a relationship where I felt like I knew I was doing fetishizing. It was with a white guy. And this is how I'll describe fetishization. It's othering. It's you see people as one. First of all, you see all black women as one. You've othered them, and then it's something that you want to get into. Like when white men only, like, okay, I go to SOAS. This is where all the fetishizers hang out. Every black woman at SOAS will tell you this. If you want a white babe, go to SOAS, you'll find him. They all come to SOAS to study Africa. They've done their gap year in Kenya for a year, and they've come here, they want to study the region. They have this very specific othering fetishization of Africa, and then what's next? African women, black women. And I think that is what fetishization is. It's like you're not humanizing someone, you're not giving them autonomy, you're not yourself. I have this idea of your race and your group, so I'm going to date you because this is what I think you're like.
Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, just to build on what you were saying, and I was going to say this earlier, I think the term preference is a way of ripping accountability from people. It's just my preference.
Exactly.
Well, now I can't argue with it. But how about you pick apart your preferences and look at where they come from? Yeah. I think when people just dash out, I don't date within my race, that's just my preference. Yeah. Well, what's that based on? Why not? Because again, it lends itself to, well, everyone within your race or outside your race is not the same. So why is that your preference?
Exactly.
But then at the same time, though, I feel like, so the type of person you just described, like the specifics to doing their gap year in Kenya, those are not the white guys I'm talking about, because they haven't done their gap year in Kenya. They still hang out with their white boys, like. But it's just that, and again, this is going by experience. Everyone has socialization, location, all of that is a different experience, everyone has a different preference based on what they've experienced. So I'm not saying that just because their preference can't be tested, because they might find a white girl who is woke, per se, has lots of black friends and just like them, but in a white setting as a girl, and then they might meet, and then that's like, oh, okay, actually it's a different thing now. But based off their experience, and again, this is just what I'm talking about from the guys I know, they just find it more interesting, and like, you know, they're more fulfilled. And I feel like there's nothing wrong with that, because the reason why I think there's nothing wrong with that, because some black girls only date black guys because they think white men are boring, or do you know what I mean? And they have an idea of it, not that they've even dated.
Yeah, but if you're looking at science, though, science will tell you that naturally people date who they look like. That's what we were programmed to do. So I mean, like that. I mean, people might voice an opinion as to why they date inside their race because of X, Y, and Z. Yeah. But it's normal. Like, as in, that's how we were supposed to kind of like evolution. We wanted, or especially men, they wanted to date someone who they look like, so their children would also look like them. And if there's any mishap, they will be able to see clearly that there's a mishap going on. So like, that's scientific, if you know what I mean. So like, let's just say, for example, if we're going to pull a stat, like, you know, most Caribbean guys, or a large portion of the Caribbean community, date outside of their race. Like, if people say it's a preference, so what overrides science? Does a preference override science?
Yeah.
But you're just going by image alone, right?
No, I mean,
Because preferences can change as well.
Yeah,
It's
that's what I was going to
necessarily
say.
black and white. Someone might prefer this for one phase of their life, and then suddenly something will happen, and then it can change at the same time.
So
And
black
also, it's
people
it
are
could be
favored.
based upon character as well.
No.
Is that not problematic?
No. But what I'm saying though is, when you talk about the science, most black men date black women. Like,
But I mean, specifically black British people. The Economist did a study, and they were like, I think something like 40% of black, of Caribbean British men date outside of their race, which is extremely high when you're looking at other nationalities or other races. Like, I'm not putting the same figures to African people, but I mean, Africa's a bigger continent, so it's different. And like, obviously, even if when they come over to the UK, like the numbers are now evening out way more, because obviously previously there was way more Caribbean people. But for you to have like 48% of men in a race dating outside of that's almost 50%.
What's the percentage for women?
34.
34, yeah.
Wow.
I think it's rising. Like, that's a point I wanted to bring up. Last year, I literally woke up one day and I was walking down the street, and I think I saw 3 black women dating white men down one street, and I was like, I've never seen this before in the UK. Like, normally I would see like the other way around, but when I was like, this is a thing. Like, I couldn't believe. Like, I'm not gonna say it wasn't wrong, but I was literally just like,
You know what though?
So it's mad because before you talked about it's radical to like, is it radical when 2 black people are dating each other? And you're just giving like scientific stats, which to me I'm like, is it then more radical when people date outside of
their race?
Yeah, I definitely think, I'm just talking about my personal experience, like when people will come up to me and they feel a point to say, oh my gosh, well, the black guy, you guys look so nice together. And it kind of makes me feel weird. So on one hand, I'm like, oh, I look nice with this guy. But at the same time, it's like, I would never go up to an Asian person or a white person and be like, you know what? You guys look really nice together as a white couple. Because they feel the need to say, as a black couple. Like, so that's why I'm like, it makes me feel like I'm doing something radical. Do you know what I mean?
Well, we should never be dating to prove any point.
Exactly.
Like,
And
this is the thing. I feel like people like who you date ends up becoming political. So it's not, it shouldn't be, in my opinion.
It's like Dr. Umar.
But I think your preferences are political.
Yes.
I don't think who you get in a relationship with.
I think
is political.
When we talk about fetishization, and it's the word only, then it becomes problematic and then it becomes political. Because it's like, okay, now we'll bring it.
And look at the kids. Like, there's this video I was watching on YouTube, and they were going to all these kids. I think it was in Stratford. Oh yeah, I would date anything but black things. I don't date every single young man, every single one, Latino, big batty. That's what I want.
What background were they from?
They were That was.
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
One at the end. It was just that one at the end. Yeah.
Only one.
When we talk about these stats, we need to think about where is it that people are getting this idea from black women are not like the acceptable face to date, right? Which is probably why these boys are gonna put these everywhere on the pedestal.
Music everywhere.
In anything, you don't see us. We're invisible in UK media. You don't see us, and it's always. And if you do, it's in a negative portrayal.
Or hypersexual.
Or you're mixed. Because it's like
you see dark skin. Black Panther was such a big deal to me because literally dark skinned people, I was like, what? Wow. Like, you never see that. Not in mainstream media.
See, for me, personally, like, so growing up, UK, I suppose there wasn't a lot of, but I didn't really, now I look back in it, because I was literally saying to you guys, like, I think that we should all be sort of unlearning a lot of stuff that we like, witnessed growing up and stuff like that. So now I look back and I think, but to me, again, that whole idea of interracial dating, it was never a thing until I dated someone outside of my race and people coming at me for doing that. So I feel like even the representation of black women, I do see a lack of it, but I don't think then that's a sort of, I don't know, effect on then who I decide to date or who decides to date me. I don't feel like that. But I do agree that there is obviously a lack of representation of black women. I think more so now it's getting better.
I feel like that only happens to me with like mixed race or light skinned boys.
Yeah.
Like I've dated like Tamil, Japanese, white, black, but I've never really dated a mixed race or light skin. So that's the only time,
Yeah.
But then it's all you hear is like where's that like, who's that like,
Like,
all them kind of songs. So obviously that's what they're
I was gonna
prefer.
say as well. Growing up for me, it was more like light-skinned girls, rich girls. That's who people liked. Like,
That's what kids are still saying it now.
Yeah.
But it's the way they talk about black women as well. Now, I'd never date a dark thing.
Yeah.
But like, it's proper like to disgust when they're saying what they're saying.
Yeah.
So I just think like, I think coming back to what you're saying, actually, and now I've made that point, when you're talking about dating within your race being radical and two black people being together being radical, I think what are the choices that we're making? How are they then reflecting on the children? When they're looking at us as big people, whether we like to admit it or not, lots of us are aunties and uncles. Now, when they're looking at us and the relationships that we're in, I wonder what they're thinking. And I wonder if sometimes, I'm not saying you shouldn't date outside your race, but what I'm saying is, you know, from a philosophical perspective, I wonder what young people are thinking when they're looking at us dating and who we're walking up the street with.
On that point, I kind of feel like if you're going to interracially date, do you date someone and you want them to I know this is a weird way of saying it, authentically be them? Like, one of the things I have I observe. So I go to a club and there's a white guy and he's basically a black guy but white. I'm like, well, no, because if I wanted to date a white person, I want to date a white person. Like, I don't want to date someone who basically is black but just looks white. Or like, I mean, you can do it the other way around. Like when some people say that black men fetishize white women who've got the features of black women, like whether that be like, you know, body-wise, face-wise, like how they've aesthetically done themselves, whatever. I just feel like if I wanted to date a Chinese guy, I want to date the Chinese guy who's just normal Chinese for British. Do you know what I mean? British Chinese. Like, I don't feel the need to, I don't know, now it's like, oh, this is great, the best of both worlds. You're white, but you're black. Like, no, that's weird. I don't know, I find it weird.
Out that you said, you know, you said earlier scientifically we go for people who look like us. Maybe it's that coming through. Like, maybe you want to go for something.
It feels unauthentic to me, like because they feel like they have to perform it. You know, I know all behaviour is performative, but that is.
Okay, so I have to go back to that club situation because I find it quite interesting.
You always say this.
So you mentioned that he was almost indistinguishable from a black man, and then my question is: so what makes a black man then? Because that if he grew up in a school where he's one of 5 white boys and he's around the guys and they talk the same street, the street talk is universal.
Yeah, that's two different ones. There's the authentic ones who are exactly what you're saying, like they grew up in that area, so that is who they are as a person, do you know what I mean? And then there's the ones where she's talking about where I've had it where people come and like start breakdancing. I
don't know. Obviously, I don't know.
You're not laughing, but it's the truth. I'm not even joking.
I don't know the dance moves you were pulling out, but I've seen guys who talk the same lingo, and they're comedians because it's universal. Yeah. Even my student, white 13-year-old boy, he talks from the streets. Has the same language.
That's different though. That's London. Culturally, London, I would say, is different. But I mean, for me personally, culture is deeper than how I sound. It's like how I've been. It's almost like it's been baked into me. Do you know what I mean? I understand what you're saying, and I think also sometimes some white people seem it's performative in the same way that like white women sometimes like they feel like I know about you, or like I know about you doing your hair in that way. It's like you don't need to go above and beyond, or like the whole I put my arm next to you is like I got a tat. Like it's just like you're going too far. Like it feels like you're going the extra mile. Or I go to carnival. It's like fantastic news. I
think there's a difference, and what you're saying strikes a chord actually, because I think there's a difference between mimicking something that you see around you than having a lived experience and being engrossed in it. So like culturally, like I'm the way I am because my dad's a certain way and my grandma was a certain way, and back home in Guyana we were a certain way and we eat a certain food. It's a culture that I'm in. But there are people that I've seen in London, they mimic, they don't have the lived experience behind what they're saying to you in the way that they're talking. It's something that they've mimicked from what they're around. Yeah. So I think there's a difference. It can only go so far. So there's going to be familiarity. I'm going to have a conversation with you. Right, you speak the same lingo. You know about this, you know about that. But you don't have the same lived experience. Yeah. So there's going to be a difference. You're able to mimic it. And I'm not saying, like you're being a puppet. I don't mean it in that sense. But you're mimicking what's around you. But when it comes to lived experience, it's going to be something that you're lacking in. You're not going to have the cultural understanding that goes underneath maybe what your behaviour is and the things that you're saying.
Do you have certain expectations of people who are, like, if you're in an interracial, if you're in an interracial relationship now, or you have been in the past, do you have certain expectations from your partner? Like, if you're going to, like, I don't know, discuss certain things that are happening within the black community. So I feel like we're in quite a space where it's, I wouldn't say toxic, but it's just very radical, like, in terms of what we're saying, like, all of the movies that are coming out, like, the things that we're actually explaining, or the experiences that we're talking about, the problems that we're having in society, we're kind of, like, I guess, in a way, unpicking them at the moment. Do you expect your partners to be involved in that conversation? Or is that like, this is my realm and maybe it's not your experience? Or if you are dating me, this also now has to be your experience? Like, would they go to the Black Lives Matter marches? Should they be going to the Black Lives Matter marches? What are their opinions on these things? Is it important for them to have an opinion? Do we allow them?
What you're saying is like something that's not really related to someone that's your partner. If that's someone that's your partner, they're going to want to do something that makes you happy. So you shouldn't really think, oh, well, because I'm black and you're white, like, you shouldn't. No, if they're your partner, they should just want to, like,
100%. I feel like
race or whatever, like, these things, it's just a relationship. It's like, if I'm doing this, you should be there too. You should support or understand.
Yeah, exactly. And especially, I feel like, especially if those things mean something to you and you're going to devote your whole self. If you're just dating someone and, like, obviously people just dating it, and it might not go as deep as having those political conversations and then talking about social issues and stuff like that. But if you're actually in a relationship with someone, they should then accept you for your full self. And then when you are, like, you know, being your whole self and your full self with them, they should know that these matters mean something to me. Therefore, they should mean something to you, or at least you should be, like, aware of it and be open to learn about what's going on in my culture or whatever. So when people say, like, this is like, okay, and again, this is kind of going off topic, but when people say, like, Black Lives Matter, right? Black lives do matter, of course. And then black people don't like, well, my experience, some black people don't like people who say all lives matter. But then obviously all lives matter is a void statement anyway until Black Lives Matter. But then it's like, how can you then say a white person can't go to a Black Lives Matter march if you want all people to care about Black Lives Matter? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
I mean, I think with Black Lives Matter, obviously they've seen, like, that really, like, a wide population of white people going to those marches and people feeling a certain way.
Yeah, but that to me doesn't make sense.
No, you're there though. Yeah. My whole thing is, if you're going to a Black Lives Matter march as a white person, know your lane, you know. Don't come with your animal rights poster. And I believe in animal rights. I completely believe in it. But hear me out. Don't come and co-opt a movement and be like, yeah, we're marching for this too and that. No. You're not here to do that. You're here for Black Lives Matter. So if you're coming to a march, sometimes know your lane. I'll give you an example. This is off topic, but I went to a Black Lives Matter march. We moved out of the street. It was in Brixton. A white woman in the middle. What are you doing? Occupy the street. Get back in the street. Know your lane, fam. Are you nuts? Because if I'm back in the street, who are the police coming for? Because it's not you. So my whole thing is, if you're in a relationship with a black person and you're engaging with things like Black Lives Matter, know your place, you know? Know that this is something that directly affects someone you love and possibly your children, if you have children with that person, but also know when you're taking up space. And maybe know your place when you're there. Do you know what I mean?
I totally agree, and I feel like that again kind of comes down to sort of the accountability and responsibility down to the person. Like, if I would not be with a white person that doesn't know their place.
Yes, true.
Do you know what I mean? And any other race for that matter. Like, if you're with me, you better know what's going on. To get me, so it's like, it's kind of like, you have those white people or whatever, but then, when we're going back to that, should that person be with me? If that person's come with me, they know what time it is. Do you know what I mean? Like,
would you be in a relationship with someone who's not willing to learn about who you are?
It's non-negotiable, right?
I've literally been there, basically. Like, I've made a decision not to date interracially anymore, and I'm only going to date within my race. And it's because I've had too many awful experiences with people not wanting to understand your background and where you're coming from, and I know that's not
what if they
whole
can't understand
race
it?
thing.
Like, what if they just don't understand it? Like, they just have no reference for it, so they're just like.
But there's a whole you sitting there, you know.
It's the willing. They're not even willing.
It's the willingness.
Google is free, you know.
It's like, I'm not willing to do the label anymore. Like, I'm sorry, I'm not willing to teach you everything when I could just be with someone who actually just understands because they are black.
Does every black person understand that, though?
That's a good point. Not any of us.
Everyone's going to, like, probability-wise, you're going to be more likely to, right? And it's the thing where when you're in an interracial relationship, a lot of people feel they've got a almost like an expectation now that, right, I'm going to be a little bit more tired because I've got to, like, teach you this stuff. And, like, you're not going to learn who I am and, like, learn where I'm from. But whereas, like, if you're dating someone who's probably of your own race and own culture, that's going to be easier because you don't have to do that. You're coming from the same foundation almost. Not all the time, but most of the time, like, that's going to be the likelihood. Even though you're going to come from different backgrounds and different perspectives and upbringings with it, the likelihood is that there'll be a same shared experience. So in terms of, like, being discriminated against, like, that's going to be something you would have a shared experience of.
What about if you're, sorry to jump in there. What about if you're interracially dating, but within the people of colour pool?
I was just about to say
that's what I wanted to talk about.
I dated, like, my ex is Nigerian, and, like, we had, like, some problems. And that was because of his culture, and, like, obviously by culture I'm Jamaican. And it was more so as, like, him assuming that I just would never understand. And I do get it, I'm not Nigerian, I don't know everything about the Nigerian culture, but I was willing to learn. And I feel like sometimes if you sort of dispute it at the start of the relationship, then there's no hope. Like, it's kind of, I kind of thought, like, obviously we're cool, but I kind of thought it was just lazy, like, just teach, like, not just teach me, but, like, I want to know it, like, I want to learn about X and I want to learn about this, like, it can work if you're willing. So I feel like sometimes to just sort of,
I think some people kiss their teeth with it.
Like, long you won't understand it, so I just got not like I said, why are you dating then? Then let's bounce, because I feel like you should be willing to, like, learn about, because it's just people at the end of the day, and I feel like obviously it's a lived experience, like you said, and I do understand that not all Nigerians go through the same thing. Like, you can have Nigerians who are very westernized and they grew up here in London or whatever, and Nigerians who obviously grew up back in Nigeria, and that's a very different experience. So I feel like you should always be open to make people understand your lived experience.
It depends how much labor you have to put in.
Well, yeah, exactly.
If it's a labour-intensive relationship where, like, I am constantly teaching you and educating you about what it's like to be me, then that's tiring.
And then you're not even taking that in and learning it. You're like, you're just making me do labour for nothing.
I think there's a difference between this is like, so you know the example you gave. Like, this is in our culture. This is the food we eat. This is the music we listen to. These are our customs. This is why the police shoot me. This is why when I go into restaurants, I feel like I'm experiencing microaggressions. This is why when I went for that job interview and someone assumed that I was coming for this job and not that job, this is why it hurt. Do you know what I mean? I think there's teaching someone about cultural customs, and then there's almost having to humanise yourself, humanise your experience. Oh, babes, I think you're just maybe being a bit sensitive. And it's like, no, why am I having to break down something that's so deeply hurtful to me? And I keep having to break it down. I'll attempt to teach you once, but if you keep saying to me, nah, I don't get it. Oh, no, maybe they weren't racist. I guess.
I can't do it. But what you said, though, about having those expectations for your partner, I think it's so important. I think everyone who dates interracially needs to have that. You need to make sure that they're willing to learn about your experience, because at the end of the day, what happens is that sometimes people have children and your child is going to be half black, and that other parent who isn't black needs to understand what that's like, and they need to. I've seen so many, like, mixed race people and their parents don't know how to do their hair. It's even as simple as that. Like, the moms, like, you need to learn, because your child is going to be different from you. They're going to have a different experience. They're going to look different. And I think that black people need to expect that of their partner, especially if you're having kids. They need to know, like, they have to, because you're going to raise a mixed race child who's going to move through the world differently. And what happens is that a lot of anti-blackness gets passed down because people don't do that vetting process. Like, I know mixed race people who have had horrible traumatic experiences with their white moms or their white dads as well, because they, as black people, we haven't gone through that vetting process of making sure that I'm dating this non-black person and I need to make sure they know this about
100%. I feel like speaking from that kind of experience, I know I had a friend who, I didn't know she wasn't mixed race. I thought she was mixed race. Like, she just looked kind of very fair-skinned. Like, she's Caribbean, like, heritage, so I was just like, I mean, everyone comes looking, like, completely different in the Caribbean, so I wasn't too fussed. I was just like, how are you supposed to know anything? She was quite fair. She had, like, curly-ish, but not, like, I would say very curly hair, but it looked like if you straightened it, it would just look pin straight. And then she had green eyes and she was very fair. So she'd be probably along the lines of like Rihanna, but I'd say her hair is a lot softer, and she'd probably be a little bit lighter than her. So she was, she wasn't white passing though. You definitely knew there was some mix going on. Anyway, so when we were in college, I always used to be like, oh yeah, so like we're Caribbean, X, Y, and Z, we do this, we're like blah, 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 blah. And I feel like it was her proximity to blackness was strange. Like, it felt like she hadn't been that close to blackness. I don't know, it was just because of the area that we lived in, because sometimes that is different. And then I remember, like, several years later, she was saying to me, when I was brought up, my mum brought me up as white. And her mum is white and her dad is mixed race. So, and she's not white passing, though. But the mum said, you're not black, because the dad's not black. The dad is mixed race, and I'm white, and so now you're white. And so... for her, lived experience, I can only imagine going to school and being like, I'm white, and the white people being like, no, you're not. Do you know what I mean? So I feel like it's a responsibility for me on her dad. Fool, why are you doing that? Like, why? Like, even if you've got anti-blackness within you, your child is now grown up and she feels so uncomfortable around blackness because she's now got a mother who probably has problems with blackness. Because how are you going to date someone mixed race and then be like, you are not allowed to call yourself mixed race or black? Like, that's hugely problematic.
If you're in an interracial relationship, couldn't even say that. That there's an importance to talk about it, right? There's an importance to address it within your relationship and just be like, look, we know that this is a thing, and be able to speak about race and be able to speak about the issues that affect you with whoever your partner is. And if it's another person of colour, talk about issues that affect them. But I don't think that for many of my friends who have dated interracially, I don't think it's been a topic that they've wanted to address because they don't feel comfortable knowing how to navigate that conversation.
Do you think though, like, and again, just out of curiosity, obviously in the reverse of your friend, so obviously back home we would say she's quarter caste, so she's obviously quarter black and then white, like 3/4 white. But in the reverse of that, so if you was a quarter white and then 3/4 black, would you still class them as mixed race?
My family, my first cousins are in that situation. So their mother's mixed race, and their father is black. But they would call themselves black. They look black. Like, so, I mean, you can only, like, in this society, you can only go by your lived experience. And so, I mean, if they want to shout up and down that their grandma's white, they can. But, I mean, I don't think anyone's really going to be like, okay, like, I don't know what they would achieve. I don't know what they would gain out of that, because people would be like, oh, shocking, great. And then they would move on. Like, if you're walking down the road, unless you're going to have a placard, no one's going to know that that's your lived experience.
So
like,
do you think that it's just based off image alone then? Because, so my dad's the same, like, he's like 3/4 black and 1/4 white, and he just classed himself as black. But with that girl, I don't know if the dad was in the picture, but with him not being in the picture, and obviously the mum then growing up was white, do you feel like that was just based off she didn't know how to explain?
Her dad was in the picture.
She wasn't in the picture.
I mean, they don't think they were together, but she definitely had a relationship with her dad that was frequent. I just think, regardless, so what, if I split up with someone, I should now think they have a child that's interracial, even if I had a child with a Chinese person or whatnot. So we now split up, so I now should say, okay, well, my child is half Chinese, but I'm not going to give you any interaction to the Chinese community. Why? That's
no, but she wasn't half though, was she? Because what I'm saying is that
I think it's a responsibility on, if you are interracially dating, it's a responsibility for your child to have an experience that is from the cultures that they are from. Like, if you can do it. Like, I mean, if you're living in Scotland and there's nobody around, like, no one's saying travel to Asia every single holiday to go to China because that's where the dad is from. But, like, I mean, make an effort. Like,
because they'll be moving through the world like a person of colour, not knowing why people are treating them differently. You need to equip them with the skills to know how to deal with discrimination. Regardless, they're going to face it. So it's completely... She hasn't equipped that child to deal with moving through the world as a person of colour by telling her she's white, and she's going to go through so much. She's going to wonder why people treat her differently, and not having the language to express that, so she'll internalise it. Gosh, it's just going to be a mess.
I think there's an importance of... Go on, sorry.
No, I was just going to say, if you're mixed race, can you just, like, it's because you're mix of something, like, can you just pick? Because I know this girl whose mum is, like, black. Do you know what I mean? Her mum is, like, dark. And her dad is white, but this girl, like, she actually came to my birthday, but, like, that was probably the first time she's been with, like, that many black people, like, in one time. Like, she literally exclusively hangs out with, like white people. If you see her, you think that her mum is mixed race.
Like Mariah Carey.
She's so light. She's so light, but she just, like, all her friends are just like really posh, like white girls, and she just like, it's weird because like whenever like I would like, you know, be like, oh, like come hang out with someone like some of my friends, she'll just get a bit uncomfortable. Or it's like her black side will only come out when she's drunk, and she's like,
what's her black side?
What
do you mean?
I don't know, that's kind of what she would describe it, or like her friends be like, oh yeah, like my black side comes out like when I'm drunk, you know, like she'll be like whining on guys and shit.
And that's the black side.
That's her black side. See,
it's mad though.
So you're saying she's white passing, and so like white passing mixed race people, if they're
If you
experienced,
see her, you'll be like, you're mixed race, innit? Do you know what I mean? Because it's like, you know, like her mum is like black. Her mum is not like, her mum is like the soul black. She's black. Do you know what I mean? But her mum is like, her mum's interesting because like her mum again is like, I get the impression that she doesn't really have anything to do with black people. So like in her head, like she's like, I look different to my mum, and I feel like she wants to do everything she can to move away from it. Like even though like her mum is her mum, so she doesn't really like. I've never once seen her with like anybody of like hang out with any black people. Everyone that she's always with.
Do you think it's conscious?
I don't know. Like she has like some issues like, you know, about her sexuality, and I think because of her race, I just feel like, you know, like
there's a lot going on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on with her.
Man. That's a lot. It's a lot to manage.
I think the problem is when we talk about these, we frivolously push out the line preferences. This is the issue that comes out the other end. Like when you just go, it's just my preference, and you actually are suffering with anti-blackness.
Sorry, I'm going to come in with that because my mum is married to a white man and they've had kids now, yeah? So when my little brother and sister were like 5 or something, they were playing at the park and someone must have asked them, like, you know, where are you from? They're like, oh, we're Australian, but my mum's Nigerian. Oh, my mum said what? You said what? My mum is very she's pro-black, she's very African, still got accent, da-da-da-da. But it's like what my guy was saying here was that, you know, it's like sometimes they feel that the need to like pick a side, isn't it? And I feel like I hear that a lot, especially with mixed race guys. And my best friend who's Indian, he also says like, in his mind, he cannot date someone, especially a white person, because he feels like automatically when their child is kind of born, they feel that they kind of need to go to the white side. But it's probably because of society. Like where my siblings grew up, it was all more white predominant people. So they feel probably the need to be like, oh, well, we'll kind of claim our white side, but not claim that side. So I feel like we're always seeing the image of, oh, well, you know, the person doesn't educate, or the person is anti-black, or da-da-da-da, they're not teaching. But I know, I grew up with an African mum, okay? So, you know, I know that she's teaching my little brother and sister those traits, but they just feel like...
It's like assimilation, like pressure to just align yourself with whiteness in any way that you can, especially when you grow up in a predominantly white area.
And I feel like the culture side of the two different sides, like this is what my friend was saying as well, with Indian culture or African culture or Caribbean culture, there's a lot more to do in a way, whereas with white culture, it's a bit more relaxed, isn't it? So it's kind of easy for you to kind of fall to that side because you feel like you don't need to learn so much, you know?
I don't know if I just feel like if you're having a mixed child, it's everyone's responsibility to teach that child about their background. And not just, like for me, it was my Indian nan that took me to carnival and bought me my Guyanese flag, because my dad, there was a lot going on with my dad, he was working and stuff, so he wasn't able to bring me, but it was my Indian nan that brought me to carnival, got me my Guyanese flag. She made it her point to teach me about everything. Both my mum and my dad taught me about all parts of who I am. And I think what happens quite often is, if you've got a mixed child, well, you're from this country, so you need to teach a child about that, and then you're from that country, so you need to teach your child about this. I think it's both parents' responsibility to say, okay, your dad's from here, this is about his background, blah, 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 blah. I'm from here, blah, blah, blah. And then if the other parent's in the picture, well, your mum's from here, and I need to teach you about this, this, and that. It almost, I hate the way it's like, okay, so this is your culture, you can only teach your child about that culture. There's something really powerful for a child to see, okay, I'm this and I'm that, and this side is teaching me about that side. Because the micro message behind that is, well, this side of my family accepts that side of my family, and that side of my family accepts this side of the family.
Definitely. You see my white dad eating pounded yam, do you know what I mean? It's not, but there's only so much that he can teach. So in some ways, of course, they're going to both be like, okay, this is where your mum's from, this is where, everything like that. But then there's still going to be kind of like a heavy weight on one side that's going to teach you. So.
I think what you're talking about is like a successful interracial relationship.
Yeah, I was going to say.
On that note, I kind of feel like we have to wrap up. Thanks, guys, for coming on.